What piece of advice would you give yourself?
I would tell her to be brave.
Yeah.
I would tell her to tune out everyone else's opinions, because the dream is in your heart for a reason.
Right.
It's there for a reason. God put those desires in your heart for a reason. So what are you going to do with it? Take as many risks as possible. Get comfortable with falling flat on your face.
Right.
Because that's part of life, and because your best life lives on the other side of taking big risks.
Thanks, Mav. What's up, everybody? I wanted to hop on here real quick before we get into today's episode with Brittany Tucker. It's a phenomenal episode, one that the ladies definitely want to listen to, and you guys have been requesting that I talk to more women. Hey, settle down, child. But I want to get on here real quick and say thank you to everybody who has contributed to us on Patron and become a patron of the show. It really does help. We greatly appreciate it. And I'll hand it over to Kate. She's got a little something to say, and she wants to say thank you as well.
Yes, thank you. We greatly appreciate it. We couldn't be doing this without your help. If you want to become a patron, you can go to the Leading with Vulnerability website, and there's a link that will take you to the Patreon page. When you click on it, it'll give you all the information you need to become a patron. There are different tiers you can choose of how much you want to help us out with, and then we will get you some Leading with Vulnerability swag to say thank you.
Yeah, we'll send you a T-shirt and a coffee mug with the Leading with Vulnerability stuff on it. And again, I just can't say thank you enough. It means a lot. These stories have helped a lot of people. We got some great people coming up on the podcast soon. And if you're like us, you're dealing with Halloween candy overload right now in your house. And that's all Maverick can focus on right now is that Jolly Rancher that his sister's eating right now. So thanks again. Thanks for everybody. Yep. And we'll go ahead and get into today's episode. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Say it.
It's a podcast.
Podcast. Welcome to the Leading with Vulnerability podcast. I'm your host, Yuma Barnett, and today my guest is Brittany Tucker. And we're coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee, where Brittany lives. She is a Georgia girl, though, originally, just born and raised in Statesboro, and then recently moved up here to Nashville from the Atlanta area. Former cheerleader. She's a Georgia girl, but an Auburn fan and Auburn graduate. And I'll quit monopolizing the time. I'll pass it off to Brittany so she can introduce herself, and we'll get on with the conversation.
Perfect. Thanks so much for having me. So I do live in Nashville, so welcome to Nashville.
Yes.
But by trade, I'm a professional speaker. So I speak for a living, and I'm also a certified life coach, and most of my clientele is women. So we work anything from life purpose to midlife crisis to self-care, time management, and I really think my purpose in life is to use my gift, which is speaking, because we all have a gift,
right? And
to help women just step into who they're created to be, right?
Right. That's great. Before we get really into it, what do you like about Nashville? What brought you to Nashville?
I love it. So I do not like cold weather, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere north of Tennessee, but it's beautiful here. So it's a city, but it's not too big. It's great food, great live music. Any time of the day, you can go listen to live music, and I love the outdoors. So we have a lot of waterfalls and hiking and things like that around here, and everybody's super nice.
Right, and of course you got the great music scene here, great downtown scene. And and you're right. That's one reason I'm not going back out west is because I hate the cold. I hate the cold as well.
I don't do cold.
Not a fan. So the reason we're here, vulnerability. Ask everybody this. What's your definition of vulnerability?
I think it's really just being true to who you are, being comfortable in who you are, but letting that guard down so you can create intimacy with other people. Because in order to fully connect with someone on any type of level, you have to be vulnerable.
Right.
But that's the ability to be able to show your weaknesses and be comfortable in those and understand that we're all human. Right.
Yeah, vulnerability is so important, and I think people automatically think it's a weakness, especially people from my background. They say, I'm not vulnerable. Exactly. There's no way I'm vulnerable. And then I'll ask them, well, did you feel vulnerable when your first child was born? Mm-hmm. When you're standing there and you can't do anything? And they're like, well, yeah, I felt vulnerable. And other times they're like, well, vulnerable moments are actually some of the greatest moments of your life, right? If you look at it. So with that, so you're, like I said, you're the self-described all-American girl, and you've kind of branched off from what your predestined or pre-thought plan was. What's the all-American girl?
So I grew up the all-American girl. I mean, I checked the checklist that I thought had to be checked, which was, hey, I'm going to get straight A's. I'm going to be a cheerleader. I'm going to be captain of the cheerleading squad. I'm going to do the pageant queen, the homecoming, like the whole 9 yards. Went to college, went and got a nice job in corporate America. And that's what I thought I needed to do in order to be successful and to be worthy as a woman.
Right.
And I just remember sitting at a job that was very successful at making good money at a young age. And I just remember sitting there and saying, this is it? Like, this is it? You know, like I reached it and this is what it feels like. I felt so unhappy inside. And so I got up and walked downstairs and quit.
Just like that.
I did. I had no backup plan.
So what was it? What was the moment, or did something trigger it, or was it just a sudden feeling that you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing?
Yes, it was. I was in an environment where it was kind of a toxic environment. Like I loved my clients, I loved who I worked with, but I just felt like it didn't feel right, you know? Like I feel like when you're in a place that you're supposed to be, like that gut feeling is there for a reason. And I was like, it's time to go. But it was scary because I had nothing lined up. So I had to go home and write my resignation letter because I didn't even have one typed up at the time. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to figure this out because when God closes one door, he's going to open another one. Right. And so he definitely did.
Well, that's you're right. When your faith, I was going to cover it later, but you brought it up. Mm-hmm. So where does faith play a role in your day-to-day or even leading up to that decision to change your life purpose or plan?
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up, obviously, a Christian. We went to church. It wasn't every Sunday, and so it wasn't a big part of our life. But I'd say, throughout high school and college, I did Bible study in small groups and things like that. But I think at some point in our life, like when the more world that you see, the more you start to question faith a little bit. Right. And so I definitely went down that path a little bit as well and saying, hey, like, is this the main source of who I am and my creator and but I think that's just part of our journey. But definitely, I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I believe we have a plan. He's the ultimate one in control. Right. And so yeah. Yeah. So you started from college in corporate America, right? So we spoke a little bit before we got on here. I have some military spouses that listen. And at some point in their life, they're going to transition. Like the Army's going to end for all of us. And when it ends for us, we're going to have to do another job. And the spouse usually picks up and starts working, or the spouse who's been sitting on the sidelines gets to finally do what she wants to do. What did you learn in corporate America? What are some of the pros and cons of that life? I look back on it and I'm very grateful for it, right? I'm grateful for the experience I had. I'm grateful for just a taste of saying, hey, like these are good skills. But also I knew it wasn't my final destination. Yeah. So
did you learn a lot about yourself in the corporate America environment? Yeah.
I did. I learned that I'm very independent. Right. I don't like being told what to do, which, you can use that as a strength too. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I felt like my potential was capped at where I was. Right. It was just like, I'm not using all my gifts. And you feel when you are living your purpose every day, you feel that and you wake up and you have that energy. And it was like I just had hit this ceiling of like I couldn't go any further here.
So when you talk about your gifts and finding your purpose, what helped you find it? What were some of those key things that made you realize that?
Yes. When I quit corporate America, I didn't work for 6 or 7 months. I took a sabbatical too. I traveled the world, and that just really helped me discover like who I truly am. Because when you travel alone, I always tell women this: if you've never had the opportunity to travel alone, like please take at least one trip by yourself, because it's like being able to go somewhere and you don't have the labels of what you've been told your entire life. Right, like it's almost like you can go and be someone else. Right. And so I learned a lot about myself through solo travel to different countries and reading tons of books. So in the travel, I've learned a lot in my world travels as well. Some of them more fun than others in my line of work. But what did you learn about yourself and the world as a whole during your travels? I always tell people the biggest thing is the world is so big.
It is.
And love makes the world go round. Yeah. It's that simple and it's that easy, and it's so interesting to me how I can travel to these certain countries, and when I travel I like to go for like 2 weeks or a month because I like to fit into the community and get to know the people, and so I feel like I would be dropped in just I'd drop myself on an island somewhere, and I would leave 2 weeks later with like 40 new friends. And
Right.
it's so amazing to me how true, genuine people, and there's so many good people in the world, will just open their heart to you like that. And love really does make the world go round.
Yeah, let's talk about vulnerability, a woman traveling solo
Yes.
around the world. But you're right. When you have actual conversations with people, there are some really amazing people all over the world. And all those travels, does one of them stick out? Like one location or one place that you often refer back to?
I'm a water girl.
Yeah.
And I love islands. I think I've done 16 islands at this point. But I lived in Bali in 2017 for a short period of time, for about a month. And it was just like everything you've heard about it. Like it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So more about, that was a big change for you, changing there. When during that moment did you have that aha moment, like this is what I'm going to do? This is that purpose, that calling for me?
Yes. I think it didn't start right away. That was more of the traveling part was more of the, I like to say, peeling back the onion, layers that had been put on top of me for so many years, because I truly believe that have you ever heard the saying, people are like, oh, I was lost and I found myself.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that at all. I just feel that we've been buried under cultural expectations and the opinions of others.
Right.
And so when you start to lift that, it's like, wow, who am I? And what do I really love doing? And so I think it took me a little while to understand, okay, first of all, who am I?
Right.
And let's figure that out. And then what can I do with these gifts? And the coaching, obviously I had been speaking in corporate America, and so that's how that kind of continued. But the coaching, I had young women kept coming up to me and saying, hey, will you mentor me? And it was like, okay, there's something behind this, so that's where the life coaching started.
Yeah, and I think what I really gather there is you don't have to rush to the next thing, right?
You're right.
You can take a step back and gain some perspective and see what's around you and try to take in, be more intentional, be more in the moment, right? And you don't have to you didn't jump straight from corporate America and find the next thing. First, you had to find yourself before you could find the next thing, right?
Yes.
So great lessons. And it doesn't matter where you're at in life, whether you're 21 years old or 40.
I was around my late 20s and early 30s at that point. So it's never too late. You're exactly right.
Yeah. So in that time and that change, when you say that word change, what are some of your keys to having a successful change in your life or in your job or just in general? Because that's what our community, military, and a lot of communities really will have to move around and, pick up the kids and do things. How do you get back in? How do you deal with change?
How you navigate change. I think the most important thing is to know that it's coming.
Yes.
And if you can embrace it and welcome it, you will have a completely different experience around it.
Yeah.
Because most people are in our natural state, we're resistant to change. And so you can say, hey, I know this is coming. What are the good things about that, right? But also, what are the things that will remain the same that can make me feel comfortable?
Right.
But with change comes growth, right? Comes progress, comes new opportunities. And so I think it's all about the way that you view it, too.
Right. And then you also said mentorship. And I think mentorship is a huge part of life, right? Finding somebody who's either already been there or can just give you an honest feedback, right? That honest. And I think the word that gets thrown around a lot now is networking. Network. And I know from my lens, sometimes that gets a little dumbed down, right? That's kind of click as many people as you can, connect, where the word should really be relationships, build relationships. So what had mentorship done for you as a mentor and a mentee in the past?
Yes. So I have a mentor. I have different mentors in different aspects of my life. And I think it's so important to find someone to guide you along life. I always say we can't be the best version of ourselves by ourselves.
Oh, right. That's very good.
And so having people pour into you is so important. I've been very blessed to have awesome mentors, but then also like mentoring young girls. Like I always have interns within my business. And so they teach me so much. Every semester, I'm just blown away by what these girls are teaching me and things that they're bringing up that I'm like, oh, I can take that and help other people. And so just surrounding yourself with the right people is key.
It is key. And I think what you said there is you can learn from them too. Just because you're the primary mentor, I've learned a lot from other people when I was in that role. And it's about a community and building relationships. And I always tell people, if you're transitioning, it's a team sport. If you're everything in life should be a team sport. So always try to find somebody to lean on and talk to. And mentorship is undervalued.
It is.
for people in my position that in the Ranger Regiment, we don't value mentorship as well as we should, and it's just so important, right?
Exactly.
It's so important to get you through. So as you stepped into the entrepreneur life, what's your definition of an entrepreneur? What does that mean? How did you go about it?
It's so silly. It's so funny. I wake up sometimes, I'm like, oh, I am an entrepreneur.
Right.
Like, I own a business.
Right.
Like, wait, hold up. I've had a business for 7 years now. I've been on my own. I think entrepreneurship is solving a problem, right? But it's also using your gifts to help other people.
Right.
And I think if you can tie those two in together, then that's where your light bulb goes off.
Right.
So for me, it's just using my gifts to help others.
Yeah, and what are some of the challenges that you've had in that space? There's some that have stuck out to you, or some that might be common to everybody when you first get into doing something on your own.
Yes, it's never a smooth sailing road. You know, it's always going to be like this,
right.
and that's the fun part of it, though, right? That's the excitement part of it. You know, even with COVID, right? So I speak for a living, and I make my money standing in front of people, right? You know, and so that kind of threw me a curveball last year. But I remember sitting down and saying, I'm not going to let a global pandemic take my business of 7 years down that I've built. What will I do to pivot? You know, and so pivoting, like learning to pivot and be flexible in the entrepreneurship world is like the two things you need, right? Just determination. I would say a positive attitude, but I'll be honest, there's some days I'm like, you know what, like this is a lot, you know, as a single female. But I think there's so many resources out there now for women that weren't there when I started 7 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
So it's much easier, and there's so many good communities to help women start businesses now.
Right. Can you speak to any of those resources that are out there that some of the listeners might have?
I mean, like I can think of one right now. I'm on a Facebook group that's just like women entrepreneurship, and there's probably like 30,000 women on there.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I mean, you can find different ones depending on what type of business you want to be in, right? So maybe it's female speakers, or maybe it's female virtual assistants or things like that, and it's just big community. It's like, hey, I have this issue. How can I solve this problem? And someone always speaks up and says, hey, this is the way that I did that. And I just think having that community is so, so important.
Yeah. I've realized that people want to help people.
They do.
People really want to help you. As long as you seek it and you come at it from a respectful place, a humble place, people will want to help you. So during that road, did you ever have a time where you're like, maybe I shouldn't do this? Or how does somebody, when they reach that friction point where they think they might quit, how do you push past that point?
Yes, I've had that moment all the time.
Right, yeah.
You know, and I think Dawn is my mentor, and I think I get it more than most people because I love change.
Right.
And so I get bored very easily. And so if I'm like, okay, you know, what can I do next? But I think that getting past a point where you've hit a speed bump is just staying the course, even if it's small, consistent action. Like there might be days where I knock a ton of stuff out, right? I feel so productive. And the next day I only do one thing for the day. Right. And I have to remind myself, Brittany, it's baby steps. It's small, consistent action. And if I can show up every single day, regardless if it's a small day or a big day, then that's going to get me to where I want to go.
Right. Do you have a routine that you do? Because I think sometimes when people step into an entrepreneur, it can get really messy, right? Yes. And you can start doing things. Yes. And I know just from a military perspective, routine is important. It's like having a routine. Can you speak a little bit about your routine?
I do. I'm a big routine person. Right. And I think it's just to help my brain just be less chaotic. So I have a morning routine. So every morning I always drink matcha.
Yeah.
I'm not a coffee drinker, but I'm a matcha drinker. So if you've never had matcha, highly recommend it. Yeah. I can give you my recipe too if anyone wants it. And then I journal every morning. So I do something called morning pages, which is where I free-handedly write 2 pages every morning. There's no topic to it. It's basically a brain dump for me. It's checking in on my feelings and my body. I've solved so many problems just by doing this, learning who I am as a person. And then I also plan out my day, and I normally read. Right.
Mm-hmm. And I'll come back to journaling a little bit. I started doing some journaling as well, and adding some gratitude to the end. 3 things that I'm thankful for
every day.
And there's science that backs up pen and paper and writing that helps you clear the mind and clear the clutter and arrange your day. So if you're not doing that, try it out.
Yes,
right? Definitely try it out.
Gratitude's part of mine. I strongly believe in it. 3 things I write down. You can also say them out loud. And there's also an app called the 5-Minute app that you can download, and it will alert you every morning to write in 3 things you're grateful for.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. That's, and there's science behind gratitude, having gratitude and helping you clear the clutter, clear the everyday, because it gets busy, right?
It does.
Especially
It does.
when you've got to promote yourself and all the social media and the different ones and learning the algorithms. So it's very important to find some sort of routine for yourself, I think, for self-care. So I was reading on your website, and I'll read it so I don't mess it up. But it says, my passion is to help women ditch society's standards no matter their age, circumstance, or season of life. What does that mean?
It just means to throw out this concept that's been drilled into our brains for as long as I can remember of who we need to be as women.
Yeah.
And when we do that, and especially being a Christian, when we do that, when we try to fit the mold of the same person, we end up robbing ourselves and others of our gifts and so much joy.
Right.
So if you can really step into who you're meant to be and just take, I don't have to live in this neighborhood, or I don't have to drive this kind of car, or I don't have to have this type of job, but that's what we're told as women for so long. And it's so, every time I talk about it, I get a little angry about it, because I followed this list.
Right.
And I was just unhappy. And now I'm like so much more happy because I'm stepping into my gifts and who I am and using my gifts to help other people. And that's what life's about.
Right. I agree. I think everybody has gifts, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And it's okay to say you have a gift. It's not arrogant.
No, not at all.
It's how you use them, right? And understanding them. What do you think, how do you start? Like if there's a woman that's stuck in that season, right, where they've been they've been the stay-at-home mom while the husband's deployed for the last 20 years straight that we've been doing. How do you kickstart yourself?
Yeah, I think the first step I always tell people is acknowledging that you need something to change. So if you've done that, that's the hardest step.
Right.
Right? Hey, something needs to change, and I'm willing to make it change.
Right.
I think a lot of women, we're especially women who are mothers, right, or who are wives in the military, they tend to pour themselves into other people so much that they haven't taken time to refill their own cup. And so it's very interesting. A lot of women I work with, one of the first things I say is, what makes you happy? And so many women answer that question by telling me something about their husband or their kids.
Yeah. Huh.
Instead of themselves.
Yeah. And
so it's digging deep to saying, hey, who are you first and what makes you happy? What is it you like doing? Like a lot of women can't even tell you this right now because they haven't focused on themselves in so long.
Right.
So I think it's more about when you start to really get back into who you are, it's going to be apparent what you should be doing and what you want to do and what you enjoy doing.
Right. And I'll speak from the husband perspective, right? I think it's important for us to try to realize what the sacrifice our spouses have given, because my wife will do the same thing. She'll tell you the kids or me or something. Mm-hmm. But if I ask her, because she's an artist and art teacher, I was like, do you miss art? And she, yeah, I do. Well, how do we get that back in your life? How do we do it? How do we do it together as a team? Because marriage is the ultimate team sport, right? So, and then identifying it, just noticing that there's something that needs to change that's a big step right there, and getting that done is sometimes, like you said, I think it's the hardest. So it's all about knowing yourself and emotional intelligence. So EQ versus IQ. What's your thoughts on those two things in emotional intelligence?
I think I always think that discipline outworks intelligence all day long.
Yeah.
And I've seen this play out so many times in my life. But I think being aware of, just like you said, like emotional intelligence, people's feelings, I'm really big into energy lately.
Yeah.
This is like my new thing I'm on, like picking up on energy. And I feel as a speaker, it's very important for me walking into a room. But just being aware of other people, like so many of us are so... we don't make the intention to do that, right? To understand other people and how things affect other people, or how people are sensitive to things. And so being intentional about things is a better way to go about doing it.
Yeah. Intentionality is important at being a dad, a husband, a leader. Correct. Right? And I think you're a leader, right? You're a female leader. What does that word mean to you? Leader and leadership.
Yes. It's such an interesting word. I think being a leader is just it's paving the path for other people, right? but it's letting them go and helping them go on that path too.
Right.
So I think it's, when I think of leadership, I think of most women in my situation, they just need permission.
Oh, yeah.
That's all they're looking for is permission. So if they can see that someone else has done this before them,
Yeah.
then they're more willing to go do it. It's giving someone permission. That's it. It's not that you're smarter than anyone. It's not that you're more talented than anyone. It's just that, you made the brave step maybe to go one step ahead of someone else,
Right.
but that's it. I mean, it's nothing more than that.
Right. There's a term we have in the middle, it's initiating movement.
Yes.
Like sometimes you got to stop planning.
Correct.
Nothing's going to be
Yes.
perfect.
Yes,
The plan's not
yes.
going to be perfect. You just got to go, right? And get messy and throw it at the wall. And if it doesn't stick, do something different. But but if you don't start, you're never going to get there.
They're exactly right.
And another question I ask everybody that comes on is about what was your most challenging day in uniform or your most challenging day in corporate America or as an entrepreneur? Is there a day that you think back on that was a real challenge for you, but you got through it?
I think there's been a lot of challenging times. I don't know that there's one specifically that comes up to top of mind, but obviously the pandemic has been very tough on a lot of people in different industries. Obviously mine because of speaking, but I got really sick last year, and so that took me down. I lost my eyesight for 2 months unexpectedly, and so I haven't been sick like that in 15 years. And so I wrote on my Instagram, I actually have a post of what I learned during that time, because I kept telling myself when I was in the middle of it, there has to be a lesson in this, Brittany. There has to be a lesson in this. And one of the biggest lessons for me was to slow down.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when your eyesight is taken away from you.
Yeah.
What you can't do. I couldn't drive. I couldn't work. I couldn't anything. And so there was a lot of moments like sitting within myself. And I think sometimes our culture especially, we're taught to go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. But when you actually sit with yourself and you're quiet and you're still, you learn so much about yourself. And so that was one of the biggest lessons for me was just to slow down. I also focused more on my health after that, even though I thought I was a fairly healthy person.
Right.
But there are just so many things that you can always learn about. And so I'm on this new path of, learning about toxins and energy and all kinds of fun things.
So you lost your eyesight for 3 months? Is it?
2 months.
2
yes,
months.
2 months.
Did they find out why?
Yes, I caught a rare virus in my eyes. It took about 4 different doctors to figure out what it was. I ended up at Vanderbilt University Hospital here in Nashville. And so they monitored my eyes. Like I had to go in every week. And then the medicine they put me on to actually help it. I was on steroids for 4 months. So if you've ever been on steroids, that kicked me into depression. And so it was just a really, really rough time for me last year.
So I can't imagine, right? That's was it instant or gradual?
It started going gradually. So most of the time, the way I explained it to people is I would wake up and it would be a cloud that I would see, or I would see triple or double if I saw anything.
And you're good now.
I'm good now. Yes. I have my checkup appointment in December.
That's.
I know. I wrote my doctor. It was the sweetest thing. I wrote them like all a note at Vanderbilt. I was like, you just because there's so much fear when you're in it, right? It's
absolutely.
like, will my eyesight ever come back? And you can't, I think a lot of times we let our minds go to the worst case scenario. And so I had to consciously be aware of that. Like, no, Brittany, you're going to get your eyesight back. You know, it's a matter of when it's going to come back. But what do we do within this time? And so I rested a lot. I mean, there wasn't much I could do.
Yeah. So during that hard time, what did you lean on? Was it your faith you leaned on the most, or trying to just be more positive, or friends and family?
Yes,
or
I had a good
everything?
support system helping me out. Yeah. I'm a journaler, and I couldn't really journal because it's like hard to write. It's just so crazy. I tried working one day, and this is just to show you, like, God was like, Brittany, you don't need to be working. But I was trying working one day, and I deleted something permanently off my computer, a folder, and I had called Apple and tried to get them to help me, and they were like, no, it's literally gone forever. And I was like, this is why I shouldn't be working right now. So it's just a reminder, like, it's okay to stop. It's okay to rest. It's okay to take that time for yourself. And so slowing down in that really it taught me a lot. It really did.
Yeah, I think that's a problem a lot of leaders have, is taking care of yourself. It's hard when you've been in service to others your whole life, or the better part of your life, and then somebody asks you, what have you done for you lately?
Exactly.
And most people, myself included, I can say nothing, right? So take care. It's so important to take care of yourself.
Exactly right. Yes.
So Can you tell people where they can find you and a little bit about what you do?
Definitely. So mainly motivational speaking for women along the women line, anything from lunch and learns to conferences, if you guys are ever interested. And then I do life coaching.
Right.
So I do group life coaching, and then also one-on-one. So I heavily live on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's at Brighter with Britt. It's 2 T's, Britt. It's the name of my business came about because I sat down one day and I sent all my close friends and I said, what should I name my business? And someone said Brighter with Britt. And I was like, that's so clever.
Yeah.
And they were like, Brittany, you shine a light. And I said, that's great, but everyone has a light to shine, right? And so that's how it came about. So it's just Brighter with Britt. I'm on Instagram. I'm about to take off on TikTok. If anyone's on TikTok, that's a game plan in the next few weeks.
Oh,
and
nice.
So yeah, that's the best way to reach me.
And it's one of those things, whenever I tell somebody I was coming to interview that knew you, they're like, oh, Brighter with Britt. Yeah, that's so it works, right? It's very catchy. It's very, very catchy. So the last question here to wrap it up, another one that I asked everybody. So if you could go back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I would tell her to be brave.
Yeah.
I would tell her to tune out everyone else's opinions. Because the dream is in your heart for a reason.
Right.
It's there for a reason. God put those desires on your heart for a reason. So what are you going to do with it? Take as many risks as possible. Get comfortable with falling flat on your face.
Right.
Because that's part of life, and because your best life lives on the other side of taking big risks.
Right. And you speak failure, right?
Yes.
Failure is not necessarily a bad thing, right?
No.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I always say either you win. I never lose. Either I win or I learn.
Yes, absolutely right. Don't say you failed, right?
Exactly.
Just reframe what you say about what Don says. I can't say it as great as well as he does, but I appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Thank you so
I know you're
much.
a super busy person going around. I appreciate it, and it was a great reason to come to Nashville for the night and and get out and see some stuff. So I'll put all your information in the show notes, and for everybody out there watching, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next podcast.
Perfect. Thank you so much.